Welcome to Anything Cricket Let's Talk. Dayton Smith, Basil Butcher, it's been a while. I would ask how you guys are doing, but I think I know the answer to that already. How can you guys be thriving? And we have so many challenges in West Indies cricket. A loss to Nepal, a massacre at the hands of India. But I suppose there are positive things on the horizon because we've got a whole new set of guidelines and strategies that will lift West Indies cricket out of the current situation. So there's light at the end of the tunnel. Dayton, why am I calling you? Why am I renaming you, Dayton? Let's go with Dayton.
Well, I know the answer because I live with it every month.
You do? Okay.
Yeah. For Basil's benefit, Basil, there's a school in Barbados called Dayton Griffith School.
Okay, okay.
And Philip, you do not believe how often people introduce me to, and I mean, they introduce me and say, Basil, this is Dayton Smith. And they say, hello, Mr. Griffith. No, because this school is burning to everybody's head.
Yeah, they soon they hear the name Dighton. They
Yeah.
associate
And
that with
Dayton is
Griffith.
not a common name. So
Yes,
there are a
yeah.
lot of Daytons. So as soon as you hear Dayton, they say Griffith. It happens,
Yeah.
Philip. Don't worry about it. It happens
Fair
all the
enough.
time.
So, Dayton,
But
what's
let's
your
go
take
again.
on all that has been going on here and your perspective? We're going to start with you, Dayton.
Yeah, well, thanks, Philip, and hello to all the viewers. My perspective is a little different in that we always respond to the latest crisis. So we get rolled over for less than 200 twice in a test match, and everyone says, "Oh, it's so terrible." We get bowled over for 27 in a test match, and everyone says, "Oh, it's so terrible." It didn't become terrible in this match, Philip. It didn't become terrible against Australia. It's been terrible for 25 years. Some will say 30. And I brought a little stat here, which I just want to start with. I know my friend Basil loves these stats. I've only gone back a couple of years. So I started from the beginning of 2023. But what I'm going to tell you now is pretty much what's been going on over 20 years. Since the beginning of 2023, the West Indies team has batted 41 times. Out of those 41 times, we've been bowled out under 150 16 times. More than a third of the time we've batted, we've made less than 150, which is a completely unacceptable score in Test cricket. But we've done it 16 times. We've been bowled out for less than 226 times. A reasonable power score in the first innings, which is not even a good score, but reasonable score, is 300. And since the beginning of 2023, we've only passed 300 4 times. So here's my perspective on this fellow. If we had half decent administrators, and I do not apologize for that statement, they would have recognized this trend a long time ago. And it didn't start in 2023. I'm sure Basil will back me up on this. I'm sure you are aware of this. So my question is, if we look at the broad picture, and we are a team who makes under 150 so often, under 200 so often, in any business, if you recognize your weakness, you have to address that weakness. And my question is, how have we addressed that in the last 20 years? And the answer is, we have not. If you go down a level below that, fellow, at the regional level, there are several years when some teams struggle to pass 300 at that level. If a team can't figure out how to bat to make 300 at regional level, if a player can't figure out how to average 25 at regional level, then there's only one straightforward and easy conclusion you can draw from that. None of those players are ready for international cricket. And worse still, Test cricket, which is the greatest test of them all. It's the toughest cricket to play. So don't be surprised when we get above 27 against Australia, which is probably one of the two best bowling attacks in the world. Don't be surprised when the Indian attack with Bumrah and Siraj, who are two phenomenal fast bowlers, and then 3 quality spinners. Don't be surprised that we struggle to make 200. Don't let us make it about that. Let us ask why we've not been able to put together a decent innings for 25 years. And the answer, in my view, is this, and I'll let Basil have a word shortly about his view on that, but it has to do with preparation. And I'll give you a simple, straightforward example. You see the last test match. Athenaeus, who's a very good young talent we have, we were grooming him in test cricket. We just got one day and said, sorry, you're not good enough, and brought in Kevin Anderson, who I think is a good young player, but we bring him in instead of Athenaeus, who just showed in that last test match. He has grit, he has determination, he's a thinking player. He just needs more preparation. And we brought in Kevin Anderson to face one of the best fast bowlers in the world. And he looked completely see, it was embarrassing for the poor young man. And I use that example to say this. We had not properly prepared Athenaeus, but he was finding his way through slowly. And we did not prepare Kevlon Anderson. We have not prepared the team that we've sent to India. When we address that, then we could talk about if 150 is enough, or 27 is enough, or 200 is enough. I'll let Basil have a word.
I would just want to add on to what you're saying. Look, I just use the examples of Kevlon Anderson. I watched him play every inning he played in the last season, including against South Africa A. And I made a comment. I was strenuously against him being selected to the West Indies team. And I said this in the presence of the director of cricket, and he found my comments to be off-putting. You know, said that he made a 50 or something of the sort in South Africa. And I said, yeah, you're just opening the scorebook. Because if you looked, South Africa A had made 600 runs. We were batting a second time around to make them bat again. He got to 50 the very next ball, he run down the wicket, pelt a heave, and got stumped or bowled or something of the sort. Now, that's where you would see whether a guy is ready, because in that circumstances, his job was to bat and grind. So if there's either one or two things, South Africa bat again, or maybe you could push the situation for a draw. But the draw was out, but at least make them bat again. But so I call that a failure, right? And then, as you correctly say, lack of preparation. You send him out with a couple of things. A pink ball.
Yep.
Against Mitchell Starc with
the
a pink
best
ball.
night bowler in the world.
And not only that, a pink Duke's ball, not a pink ball, a pink Duke's ball. I remember Mitchell Starc making a statement prior to the test match. This would have been the first time every one of them except Khawaja had ever played in a match with a pink Duke's ball. Khawaja had played in a night match in England while he was playing county cricket many years ago. And the match lasted a day and a half with a pink Duke ball, right? So when I heard that comment, I read that comment, it was more ominous to me how West Indies was going to survive in this match. So getting bowled out for 27, for me, it was not a surprise. I didn't have this consternation. I remember we were playing a game, I forget the name of the ground there in Barbados, and our good friend Wayne Holder was sitting next to me and the coach, and he was giving us updates as the wickets kept falling, right? You know, and now we, you know, typically as a West Indian, would be like, oh my Lord. But then after we got bowled out, I sobered down and I said, remember what I read what Mitchell Starc said, you know, and then I went back that evening, we got back to the hotel, I asked the youngsters to put the replay on so I could see how all of these guys got out. And when I watched it, you know, you could understand because as Dighton correctly said, the preparation, and when we say preparation, not simply about playing test match B and A, is what acquiring of what skills that are required for you to compete at the highest level successfully has been woefully lacking in our players for the longest. And I agree with him regarding the administrators, because this new administration with our new director of cricket, he obviously did not see the need to about batting, getting people to deal with our batters and so on. It's still after the 27 bowl out. Well, we don't think our batting coach, we need somebody who is technically equipped, and all of those things come to the fore. When this is a problem that has been going on consistently, many of us lay persons here, we have discussed this. If we could understand that our batters needed help, look at Shea Hope as an example. Shea Hope was dropped, right? And when we saw Shea Hope again, we didn't see any much difference from the Shea Hope that was dropped. So what help was Shea Hope getting when after he was dropped, right? Similarly, Ruston Chase was dropped. Ruston Chase came back, but it was pretty much the same Ruston Chase that was dropped. When we're talking from a technical perspective, there wasn't much of a change in that Ruston Chase. So now when we see Ruston Chase today, he gets to 20 or even 30 or maybe 40 in a test match against good bowling, but sooner or later, he's going to succumb, because whatever was plaguing him after he got the early success in his test career we have not shown the capability to correct those things, to help our guys to move forward. And I'll say this finally, this final part. I made a statement to the now president of the West Indies board. He was then vice president. To him and Gill, who was the high performance manager, or whatever you call him now. And I said, West Indies cricket at this point, from a short term, which will become also a long term thing, we need qualified development coaches at our territorial level and within the international teams. People who have gone beyond level 3, that went on to specialize to be a fast bowling coach, a spin bowling coach, a batting coach. So the technical and the mental, and they got all that covered. I use the example of the NBA. The NBA, when players went to college and had to play at least 3 years to come into the NBA, they were pretty much pro ready. When they changed the rule to 1 year and out, you had a lot of young guys coming to the NBA, were not necessarily pro ready, right? So the NBA had to do two things. They created this G League, a developmental league, and each team, all teams, started having developmental coaches. So when you watch the NBA game, you see like 12 men sit down behind the bench. All these guys are developmental coaches because they got to bring up these players up to speed. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, listen, guys. You talked about preparation, and you also described something that I've been talking about for a couple of years now. You described the need for high performance training, high performance program. You described the need for a high performance program. And you talked about Ross and Chase, and you talked about Shea Hope and being dropped and coming back and not having change. And that's really high performance. That's why I talk about high performance. Because you see, sometimes when I listen to fellow cricket lovers, I get the impression that the people who believe that you can put a player out there, let's say from the academy or whether he comes through the school system or whatever, and you put him out there in first class cricket and then he plays test cricket, and you've got a product that will last you until that guy is 40 and retires. I am not aware of any sport that functions that way. There will always be a need for tweaks and for adjustments. Now, you may ask, well, what happened before we had all this coaching and high performance? Well, I think some of us may know the story of George Headley. Basil, wasn't George Headley stronger on one side of the wicket than the other at one stage?
Yeah, when George Headley arrived in Australia in 1930-31, reputedly the best offside player in the world, running to Clary Grimmett, never seen a leg spin in his life. Clary Grimmett humiliated him in the first 2 tests because he didn't know about playing on the onside. By the time he left Australia, Clary Grimmett said, George Headley is the best onside player I've ever seen in cricket.
How did that come about, Basil?
And he's playing with Don Bradman.
How did that come about?
He had to make the adjustments and work to play, to learn to play, to understand.
My understanding of the situation from my research was that he went into the nets, and he put nets in quotes because he didn't necessarily have nets. but
Yes.
practicing. And he
Practicing.
worked on the onside. He worked on it. This is during the tour. Remember, these were days when
Yes.
you had warm-up games and when you had a
Correct.
proper cricket tour,
Correct.
not
Not like today. Not like
not like
today.
today where you go and you send a team to India to play against some of the best bowlers in the world and you don't even get a warm-up game. You didn't have that sort of nonsense back then. Okay.
Right.
So he had time to practice, and then practice some more, and then
Mm-hmm.
practice after that, and then practice again. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
And play and he had matches in between to practice.
exactly. And I'm going to come to that matches in between thing in a minute as well. So by the time you're quite right, he actually became better on the onside than on the off where he was stronger. So that's high performance. There was not I don't know who on the tour helped him, but the point is that was a high performance activity, if you will, where you are now looking to correct something, to make an adjustment. Nowadays, maybe I don't know if players are not so good at working on these things on it. I don't know. I can't speak to that environment. But
I
the
think
point is,
I think you could,
coaching
Philip,
now.
but you're being modest. I think you could. Because
Philip,
Philip,
sorry, go ahead, man.
But let me finish up, Basil. Let me finish
all
before.
right.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that for whatever reason, you have more coaches now, you have a structure, you have even infrastructure, you have those things. And if you're going to have them, then you should make use of them. And I don't think that we have an effective, not that I said an effective high performance program. You guys both know I've been saying that for a long time. Let me come to the other part of the discussion now. You talked about preparation. Mikel Louis, and before we actually started the show, I made mention of Mikel Louis scoring runs for the first time. Was that be last season or the season before that? Okay,
Yeah, that was
right.
his first class season.
And went up to England, right? And played a warm-up game against somebody and scored a
Yeah.
half century, I think it was. And
Yes.
somebody in their wisdom thought that this guy, all right, who had just scored runs for the first time, and by the way, I do not recall Kemar Roach, Jason Holder, or any of our top bowlers playing, or let's say him having faced those bowlers. I don't recall that because those guys were not, most of them were not playing in the tournament at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So he's scoring runs against the fellas who were there. And by the way, the names that I call are not even among the top in the world now.
Mm-hmm.
So you were asked, this guy scored runs against, let's be real here. Let's say our second string first class players. And you figure on the evidence of that, you're gonna put him in a test match to face the best bowlers in the world. Where does that make sense?
Philip,
And not
if
only
I may,
that, you
right?
had a guy called McCaskey, and I'm not saying McCaskey is this or he's that, but you had taken him to Australia, and he was part of that successful tour of Australia. This is a guy who has had a history playing cricket in England. In other words, his preparation was better. I'm not saying he would have done this or that. We don't know, Dayton. We don't know, Basil. But it made more sense to go down that road. But what you did, you exposed the youngster Louis before he was ready. What has happened since then?
Right.
And
He's
the
out.
final point on that issue of preparation, you've got Roston Chase. So you said he looks the same way as when he left. How many first-class matches has Roston Chase played between the time he last played for West Indies and the time he came back as captain against Australia?
Probably like 2 or 3.
How many
Philip,
red ball matches,
if I
even at
could
club
address,
level? There was a guy called Dale Benkenstein, and you may know more about the history of him and what he was doing in the Caribbean, Dayton. But I remember the South African playing for wonders.
yes.
So he figured, obviously, that our first division cricket was something that it was better, something that could help him. Why aren't
Right.
our international players making a greater effort to play club cricket?
Yeah.
That speaks to
Well,
preparation.
a lot has come out of what you just said. So let me try and break down a few of them. First of all, to go back to this idea of preparation, which Basil hinted at something that I think we should expand on a bit. First of all, preparation to me comes in two phases. One is you have to prepare a player to be ready to play at international level. So that is basically meaning I give you a broad basket of tools. It's like you're a carpenter. So to get you ready to do work at the highest level, I gotta do a few things. One is I gotta give you a toolbox that has in all of the tools that you need. But then I have to give you some understanding of how to use those tools, when to use them, what's the best one for a situation, etc., etc. So I generally give you training to get ready to be able to go there at international level and be ready to perform. But then there's preparation of a different type, and it is for a specific occasion. So we have to play Australia with a jukes ball at night that you know is going to swing all over the place. So your focus for that game now is, what are the strategies? What are the techniques I have to master to deal with that swinging ball? Do I change my guard? Do I come further down? Do I hit? Am I playing straighter? What am I doing? So that's specific preparation, and then there's general preparation to be able to play at that level, just to understand some of the basics of what you have to do to counter top class bowling. So let's take them one at a time. Let's start with the past and what your preparation was to become an international cricketer. So if you are a Barbadian cricketer, you've never played first division cricket, first class cricket, but you're playing in the first division. September comes. So the English League is finished now. Malcolm Marshall comes home and he plays club cricket. Joel Garner comes home and plays club cricket. Sylvester Clarke comes home and plays test cricket. All of a sudden, when you go there to bat in club cricket in Barbados on a Saturday between September and the end of November, you're facing some of the best test bowlers in the world. You have to learn now how to cope with that kind of thing that you're going to meet when you reach international level. These days, when a player is not playing for the West Indies, he's playing in a league somewhere where he's going to make significant amount of money, and it doesn't make any sense for him to come and play club cricket. So these things happen and nobody addresses them. The reason that you have an administration is to say, what are the challenges in our cricket now and what are the solutions? Who has addressed that problem? Like you said, poor Mikhail Louis, a guy who I like, does not have adequate preparation, because even when he scores runs at regional level, it is not against bowling of test standard. I'll give you an example. Last year, I was at Kensington watching Barbados playing Trinidad. And Trinidad had a high-class fast bowling attack.
Yep.
3 high-class fast bowlers, and Barbados batsmen were at sea because they do not normally get that at regional level. So what you have to say is, well, so what's the solution? How do we prepare these guys if the standard of bowling they're going to face within their own countries and then at regional level is not sufficient to prepare them?
18,
and this is
18.
No, let me just finish. Sorry, wait, let me just finish. It's more than 18.
Of
All I'm
course.
saying is, before we talk about the actual solution, what I'm getting at is that's where our administration really should be focused. No, but that is a long-term thing, and that doesn't win you votes. And it is votes that keep you as president. So we're going to do the things that will win. But let me explain what you do as a president to win votes. The current president, I don't know if you recall this, when he was about to come into the chair, he issued a list of things that were needed in West Indies cricket. Do you recall that? He did. And said, well, these are the things that we got to be doing now to bring West Indies cricket back. So West Indies get bowled for 27 the other day. And there's a meeting with all the old legends and whatnot, and suddenly there's a new list. So what happened to the old list? What you're telling me is that old list was just a list of things to say, here I am as president, I'm doing something. I'm not really addressing the problem.
Yes.
But now all of a sudden we got a brand new list, which tells me that the old list was just there to make people believe we're doing something.
Yeah.
So I'm saying there are solutions, but we got to be serious about it. And one of the things that you have to do is, even if in the matching environment it is not quite what you want, you have to get high-class coaches. Bring people like Mikhail Louis in for extended periods, not a 2-week camp and then he's ready for test cricket. A 2-week camp cannot prepare anybody for test cricket. You have to bring them in. You have to get high-class coaches. You have to get high-class bowling or set your bowling machines to do precisely what you want them to be able to handle and say, all right, here are the techniques for handling it.
That word high performance again, that term.
Yes, of course. All I'm saying is we got to get serious about it. Right now, you go through, pick any team in the Caribbean, Guyana, Trinidad, Barbados, doesn't matter. Look at the players that have played in the last 5 years, and you tell me how many of them you can see their averages steadily improving. So even at the territorial level, nobody comes to a coach and says, look, my top 6 batters, I want them averaging over 30. So this year, if they're at 23, our target is that next year, all of them have to move to 26. A small target, but the point is, I should see them moving upwards at this level, because if they cannot get over 30 at this level, they're wasting their time at the international level. If you cannot score 30 at the Caribbean level against the fast bowlers we have down here, you're gonna do well against Bummer.
Yeah, well, look,
my take.
I just want to jump on to what you just said there at the end. And I had this conversation 2 nights ago. And my thing saying that in our franchise system, we have a head coach and an assistant coach. And how do we evaluate their performances? And as I was saying to this person, you gotta do something like what some. That's why I jump in on this. You got one of the coaches, you can deal with the batters. This other coach, you can deal with the bowlers. So we can have an objective analysis of your coaching results in terms of how we see the players progressing. But if you got 2 coaches who are just jack of all trades, how are we evaluating them? On sentiments or because we win a tournament? What about the improvement? We see these players coming back year in, year out, and they're at the same place we saw them last year, right? So that is one thing I think they have to change. I don't know all the different places operate in terms of that, because I feel too at our regional level, we should have a skilled batting coach, a skilled bowling coach, etc., with all of the professional franchises. Because again, we cannot continue to have players coming to the highest level deficient in the toolbox and understanding how to use the tools in that toolbox at the highest level, because then they're going to suffer, because it's the whole thing. All of those who play the highest level tell you that is the wrong place to be on the job learning, because there is where
exactly.
you're supposed to be understanding how I'm going to work out my skill set against this, because I get XYZ skills. Now go on the job, and now is the first time I'm going to deal with this situation. How am I going to deal with this, and so on and so forth. We asking for what we have right now, right? And how are we going to upskill these players as quickly as possible so they can help them to cope? I mean, one of the things I think that has gone out of West Indies cricket, and this is because of the lack of variety of conditions in which our players have to play. Because now you go around the region, you're playing a first class game, whatever, the pitches are pretty much the same. Unlike in the past, even at club level, in the past, you went from place to place. Each pitch had their different quirks and so on. So you as a player had to always learn to adapt your technique, how on the fly, how I was going to cope in these situations. So that became something that was part and parcel of your makeup. That is not part and parcel of our players' makeup today. I will just tell you another story. My father again. He told me the first time he ever faced Roy Gilchrist, the first ball, before he could raise his bat, the wicketkeeper already collect. He had to make an adjustment on the fly to start to move a fraction earlier to catch up with Roy Gilchrist. Now today, you think our players have that kind of skill set on them? The minute our players see something, a variety from what the normal bland wickets they play on and low and slow and so on, they at sea. because they have nothing in their bank, in their resources. Oh, when I in a pitch like say for example, when Kensington was Kensington, and you go and play at Kensington as a batter, and you go to Australia and you reach a bouncy track, you could go back to but at Kensington, I had to make this adjustment with the ball bouncing extra for me, right? I had something in my resources that I could use to counter the situation I was experiencing. That's not happening anymore for our players.
Gentlemen, the way forward, there were meetings, there've been meetings, and there've been suggestions. I can tell you, in listening, in watching or following the test match recently, I think it was one of the Indian commentators, made mention to one of his fellow commentators who was West Indian, and he made mention of the meeting with the former greats of the game that took place in the Caribbean a few weeks ago. And he asked for, some information as to what had come out of it. And the West Indian commentator who was on with him started to share things coming out of it. And to be honest with you, I was embarrassed. I was waiting. I was embarrassed and a bit nervous because I was waiting for the Indian commentator to say to him, but these are all basic things that have been used by international teams, including West Indies, from way back when. He talked about things like having a psychologist,
sports psychologist,
and things of that nature. And as I said, I was a bit embarrassed and nervous because I was just waiting for the commentator to say that, but he was obviously too much of a gentleman to to go that route, and he simply accepted, what was being said. So the way forward, we've got some sparkling new suggestions. Apparently, what's your take on this, gentlemen?
Well,
go ahead,
if I may, Baz, right, with your permission. The first thing I have to say is this: I did a lot of project management in my business career, and plans are fantastic, but implementation is vital. You can take the best plan in the world and implement it bad, and you're in trouble. So let me tell you, for instance, one of the things that we gotta do properly. Now, I gave you some stats earlier about the scores and what they say, but let's talk about the solutions we've tried in the past. And I want to apply what we want to do now. Since 2000, we've had a steady stream of players in and out the door. We change the players, and we get the same result. So we say, okay, it's not them. We change the captain, then we change him, then we change him, then we change him, we get the same results. We change the coach, then we change him again, and we change him again, and we change him again, we get the same results. So here's what I'm worried about in implementation. Now, take the current West Indies coach. You can be for him or you can be against him, but here's what you gotta say. He just played a test series against Australia. And a whole set of guys who would not play test cricket in years were brought in. And he probably had maybe 2 weeks to work with them. To camp against one of the best attacks in the world, you're never going to get it right in 2 weeks. Then you got India. Now, between these two test series, these guys have gone off and played their IPL and whatever else they play. They come back together for a few weeks, and then they go play India against another top-level bowling attack. That coach is going to fail. Not necessarily because he doesn't have skills, but he doesn't have the time to work with these guys. You come to the next level, at regional level. Let's take Barbados. I'm a Barbados player. You give me a Barbados contract. So the regional for the tournament is coming up. We get together for a few weeks and we prepare, and I go into the tournament. The tournament is done. What happens next? I might go to play cricket in the English leagues. I might go and play a lower level T20 tournament. I might just go and do nothing. The point is, there is no engagement with your coaches for long periods. Then we get the 50 over, I might get picked again. So we get back together for a couple of weeks, 50 overs finish, and then nothing. If we bring in a high-level coach and we expect him to fix West Indies cricket with a 2-week camp here and there, we are going to fail. There has got to be an ongoing, that's what preparation for international level means. That guy has got to go around the region. He's got to work with all the things, and he's got to say, look, here's a program I want for these players in Barbados. Here's a program I want in place for these guys in Guyana, so that if he gets 2 weeks in Barbados and he leaves, there is ongoing work when he has left. None of us are going to become international players. Let's go back. Vivian Richards was a phenomenal batsman. But when he was not playing Test cricket with West Indies, very often he would be in England in a fully professional setup for several months playing cricket, and every week working with professional coaches on his game. So he's a high-level player, working with high-level coaches, what you would call a high-performance fella, to keep getting better. We got guys
And in
who
a
are
high
not
level atmosphere, a high level
exactly. We got guys who are not ready for international cricket, and then when there's no cricket playing, they're doing nothing. So if we are going to be successful with what we're going to be doing, the coaches have got to be engaging these guys constantly. I would like an answer to this, because I don't know the answer, but I wish somebody would tell me. After Kevlon Anderson looked so at sea against in swing at 140 kilometers an hour, has anybody been working with him to learn to handle that? That's what I want to know. And he's just an example.
Well, let me go. I will use Kevin Anderson as an example. Before last season, I think it wouldn't be, it could be the season before, the season prior. We played against Trinidad, and Darren Bravo was the captain for Trinidad. Darren Bravo bowls a heavy in swinging ball, right? Many people don't know he bowls. I didn't know he bowled. He took the ball. Anderson was batting. And that's all he bowls, ball swinging in. Bowl cleaned him up. Came back in the second inning, the same thing. Then we had the Weeks and Headley game when Anderson made 100 in that game. Bravo wasn't bowling at all, and they decided they can give the ball to Bravo. Bravo came on right away in his first over, sent Anderson back. Anderson played a ball straight to gully and was out. Right? So we knew this had
before,
to be,
yeah.
We knew Anderson had a deficiency to the ball swinging back into him.
But Baza, is that not a shame? Because he's a tremendous young talent. Are we going to let him just fall by the wayside, like how we let all the others fall?
Well, what you raised about these guys at the territorial level in interacting with the coaches. Now, this summertime come, and your guys gone off to England, as you say, or guys gone to the United States or whatever, or, play these little T20 tournaments or whatever. And really and truly, that is a time where they should be interfacing with the coaches even more so. But what happens? The cricket board gives those guys an NOC.
Yeah.
And then when the guys come back home, it's 2-3 weeks or so before the regional 50 over tournament play, and you want the coaches to change and to get this fundamental change in these guys, upskilling them in 2 to 3 weeks. Impossible.
But fella, I'm glad you mentioned T20, because here's another thing that we got to address. Shea Hope is a good player, no questionable. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Shea Hope plays a lot of white ball cricket. But in white ball cricket, I don't know how many people are aware of this. The white ball is quite different from the red ball. The seam is not as pronounced. The ball is a completely different ball. And if you get a white ball to swing for 4 overs, you've done really well.
You're lucky.
You've done really well. A red ball, when you work on it, you can keep that ball swinging for 20, 30 overs. So change number one. I'm a white ball cricketer, right? And I don't have to worry about the ball swinging. When the ball hits the seam, it does not move off the seam as much as the red ball. We have a really good white ball cricketer here too. He's now trying to play test cricket, and every time the ball cuts back into him, he's struggling.
Yeah, Brandon King.
Exactly. So you pick it out. You see, I didn't call his name. My point is, there needs to be an adjustment from that white ball to that red ball. So these guys playing all this white ball cricket, they're doing well. You just now change gears and throw them in the test cricket, which they haven't played for a long time. And that is a serious adjustment. It's not that they're bad players, it's that we have not prepared them for that change. The last thing about white ball cricket is this. Organizers of white ball cricket want excitement, and they normally prepare flat pitches. So the ball disappears and the crowd is making a lot of noise, you get the atmosphere, and everybody's happy. You go into a test match now, especially on the first day when it has preparation moisture. And suddenly this ball that doesn't move in white ball cricket, so you plant your foot, you hit the line, it goes out the ground. Suddenly this ball is doing things that you wonder what's going on. It's coming back and it's going out, it's bouncing a little more, it's swinging in the air. And you now have to figure out, how do I cope for this? Where's the preparation for that difference? It's not that you can't bat, it's that I've not prepared you now for that significant change. It's not a little change, Philip, it's significant.
So Dayton, you're suggesting then by what you're saying that the decision makers are setting up the guys to fail because the players don't determine schedules. The players just turn up and they say, there's a game here, you're supposed to turn up, they turn up. They don't plan the schedule. So if there is not that preparation time, it seems to be suggesting that the decision makers, the powers that be, are setting up the guys to fail. And I'm not suggesting they're doing it purposely, but that's basically what is happening.
And just to add on what Dighton said in terms of white ball versus red ball, the other thing is you don't have 3 slips in a gully waiting game. So a lot of times you would see a Hope or a Carty or a Brandon King edge one had gone for 4 in the white ball match. But in the red ball game, they walking
five
back,
guys behind there.
They're walking back to the pavilion. I remember an instance the one game Sheho played in this last first class season. I think he made close to 40 and he got out caught at extra cover around that area. It was around the 44th over being bowled. And I said to somebody, the shot he played was a white ball shot because it was up, it was a good catch. I think it was Bravo took a good catch coming forward. But he could afford to play that up his shot in a white ball match because no way at the 44th over in a 50th over match, they're going to got a guy in the circle at extra cover. Right? So the instincts that he has developed in white ball, he has not been able to curb them enough when he gets into the white ball, the red ball, that certain way of playing and the shots I would want to play in situations can't apply to this game. I don't know, and I would say he's probably not as mentally strong as, say, Kane Williamson. Because if you remember, when we went to New Zealand the last time, it was right after IPL. So we were in quarantine with the New Zealand players. Remember, they got the most draconian 14 days you're in quarantine. And I understand Kane Williams had his coaches throwing at least 1,000 balls a day, wherever they were in quarantine, so that he could make that switch mentally to the upcoming test series and so on. And I remember, he made 200 and change against us in that test match. I never forget this. Kane Williamson was on 49 for about half an hour to 45 minutes on 49. And I'm watching this thing with amazement. He wasn't flustered or anything to get this single to take him over 50. And then I'm thinking in my mind, if he was a West Indian, what would have happened? We guys would have looked to play a shot after a period of time to get that one run, to get to the 50. We can't stay. And I watched this thing with amazement with how long he stayed.
But Basil, you're a product of your environment. You might be a product of other things too, but you're a product of the environment.
That's true.
How many? We all three of us are immersed in cricket discussions virtually every day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Technology
Yes,
allows us to do that. Okay.
exactly.
And you know the comments.
Mm-hmm.
Comments, who are the most heavily criticized people? Not your Brandon Kings and not it's all Chanda Paul, Raffit. And then there's some guys who we know to be influential people, who we know to be intelligent people. And their critical of test cricket is dead. We should,
Yes.
you're a product of your environment. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you are in an environment, in a society, in a culture that does not appreciate the finer points of test cricket, as in the days when your dad played,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you pick the team from the environment, you pick the team from the society. We're going to get that mentality. And you know, you talk about Kane Williams. It's interesting that you mentioned him, okay? Because we all observed many things during COVID. And I think one of the things, well, I know for sure one of the things I observed is the New Zealand mentality from the leadership back down on
Mm-hmm.
handling COVID issues.
Mm-hmm.
A totally different discipline altogether. All right.
Mm-hmm.
This type of
Mm-hmm.
discipline in that society.
Yes.
So, you know, your point's bit, but just one more thing before I hand back to you guys. Um, product of your environment, you know, the community that you live in. And I remember coming up, you know, in the cricket days, there's your dad, you talk about them. And I would hear, I mean, we all played cricket. I think probably of the three of us, not probably,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fair to suggest the
Yes.
one who is probably the achieved the most and you know it was good,
Mm-hmm.
pretty good. But we were good at following the game, Basil, still so.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that as I learned, you learned about playing for lunch and that type of those terminologies that
Yeah.
work so
I,
well for players
I got
exactly.
a story about that too.
So yeah, I want to hear that story. So
Yes.
imagine my shock when I was watching the first innings of the test match.
Or
I
how
saw Hope play this big drive to
yes.
Kuldeep's stock ball really and
Yes.
got ball because there
Yes.
was a gulf between his
The
bat, the
baton
body, and
pad. Baton
and he
pad.
walked off. And I mean, yes, I was disappointed, but then when I saw Chase walking next to him, because I wasn't cautious at the time. Huh? I mean, at that hour of the night,
Right.
I wasn't cautious at it. I'm watching the cricket, and then I realized that Hawk probably wasn't conscious at the time either. Is that a shot in your dad's day, Basil? And we can even come more recent that you would play
I'll give you.
in the last over to lunch.
I'll give you an example now. Guy that played Barbados,
Oh,
and Everton Weeks was the captain for Barbados. And my father say he play a shot just on lunch. Good shot, 4 runs. And as he walking off, Everton Weeks run up beside him and say, "Batch, that's a good shot. You don't play that just before lunch because you got out. Now you put your team on the back foot." And when he told me that story, he was telling me in the context of how the older players always gave you advice, even though you're playing against them, right? Because another time along the same lines, playing against Trinidad, he make 50 something and play a shit shot and out. And as he sit down taking off his pads, he look down and he see a 2 feet in front of him. As he raised up his head, it was Jerry Gomez. And Jerry Gomez was chastised. Basil, how can you play a shot like that at that time? You got all these youngsters here watching you.
Yeah.
You do not play those shots in those situations. So that those were kind of things were always part, and that can come up in that time where the older players were always that mentorship, in my view, which was an important facet or aspect of West Indies cricketers' development, both mentally and physically, is no longer entrenched as it used to be, and we are for the worse for it, right? You know, oftentimes when people say, "Oh, we got to get the legends involved," I often say to them, "We don't need the legends always at the West Indies level, you know." I actually think the legends would be much more impactful at the age group level, to inculcate into our youngsters the values that are necessary for you to become an international or good cricketer. I know my dad, when he was playing club cricket after he retired, he would always tell these guys about how hard cricket is, what you had to do to get to the top. And I remember one day we in the car and we driving going home and we passed one of the guys. He was a younger guy in the team playing with my dad. And my dad turned to me and my brother and asked, y'all think that guy, what's his name, gonna make it? And we knew him and we know he was a talented player. We said, yeah, man. Yeah. My father said, no, Skipper. He will never make it because he's lazy. He is not. You see the little running? This is all he can do. A little running and he think that's enough. He does not want to put in the necessary work. And these guys had an example in front of them who they were playing with that would translate this to them over and over and over, you know, and which was important because many guys who had played for Guyana during that time or was on the cusp would tell me, Butch, playing against your father or playing with your father in club cricket was an education for us. We got to understand when he come to bat, how we would approach his innings and all those things. We pick up, and then at the end of the day's play, he would sit down with them for about 2 hours and discuss cricket.
Basil,
We have that today. After the
Basil,
match done, all them guys gone home.
Basil, we talked about older players giving advice.
Yes.
All right. Who are the older players in the West Indies team? We don't have older players
No,
anymore.
no, well, not around the West Indies team.
No, because we don't have older players anymore.
No.
Because as soon as a guy turns 30, you know, we start talking about it's time to move on. And
Yes.
while we have not had too many successful batsmen in recent times, and the ones that we've had, we found some way of the ones with the best statistics behind them, Bonner, Bravo, you know, we found a way to get rid of them prematurely. You know, we were saying that I remember the talk was that Bonner couldn't face fast bowling. Well, I don't know if the 20 average guys facing it any better than him. They tell me he was concussed twice. So was Steve Smith. So I really don't understand that. But to get back to what I'm saying now, Roach, Johan, young Johan Lane.
Lane.
Yeah, playing in a test match in India. I don't know if he was on you know, WhatsApp or something with a Roach. But wait, I mean, do we have the resources that we can put Kemar Roach out to pasture? If Kemar Roach is on tour and is not in the 11 for test match, is that a crisis? Do we say, I mean, our egos so fragile? The Kemar Roach that I've watched play cricket for a long time. In the Barbados setup, he has been a mentor for years. And in the West Indies setup, similarly, I have heard with my own ears, players compliment. In fact, we could even go back to Shamar Joseph in Australia. They hardly say anything about their success when being interviewed, unless a Kemar Roach comes into it and things of that nature. And everybody seems to recognize this except the selectors.
Well, I would say this. You see what England did? Anderson retired and they brought him into the fold, right? I didn't see why we couldn't do that. Even if Roach is not retired, but to have an experienced head. But you know what? The director of cricket said to Philo Wallace on Andrew Mason's show, when Philo Wallace questioned him when they were preparing for Australia, you have all these great fast bowlers, former West Indies fast bowlers that live in Barbados. You didn't see to bring any of them that they could lend a hand in talking to these players and so on. And director of cricket said, no, we don't. Not paraphrasing him. We don't need those guys. We have Ravi Rampal, and we want him to be in to implement what he wants to implement and so on. And what I get from that is that maybe our coaches have an ego problem and forget what their roles are. I'm just speculating because as a coach, your primary charge is to help that player to be better. You don't have all the answers. And if you can get other people that can bring information that will help that player to move from point A to B, you always welcome them. You don't push them away. And that's a problem. I think we have it in our West Indies coaching culture, those egos. Because look, Australia goes to England for Ashes and the World Cup. The last time the World Cup was played in England. During the Ashes, Steve Waugh was in the dressing room with the Australian team. And then when the World Cup came around, or the World Cup was before the Ashes or vice versa, Ricky Ponting was in the dressing room with thing. And what did the coach say? It's great to have these guys because it's good to have an extra pair of eyes and knowledge and their experience playing in England in these situations to add to helping our players to work out various scenarios.
And Basil, you're bang on. And before Dayton comes back in here, or before you continue, just let me point out there was a West Indian in the England dressing room during the World Cup, the T20 World Cup last.
Yeah,
you remember his name? Huh?
Pollard.
Yeah.
Pollard.
And he was in that dressing room because of his reputation. Because of his reputation as a T20 player and being West Indies and the World Cup is in the West Indies, they recognize that here is so the England coach wasn't insecure and afraid to bring you need resources. And as a coach, basically, you're a person who manages resources. If you believe that you are the only person that could offer any advice, well, I'm very sorry for it. So an England team could draw on Pollard, but we are afraid to draw on our resources that are here. Sad.
No, but I would just want to say this quickly before Dighton come in. We've been having a problem bowling in the debt in the white ball games, more so in the T20, right? And then we got Dwayne Bravo out there, who was a great exponent of that, and is well liked by the players. All the players get on with Bravo, right? All of them talk about him, and so on. But we couldn't see it to bring Bravo in the fold, to play a mentor role with our bowlers, particularly in those situations. Instead, we let Afghanistan get his expertise. On to you, Dighton.
Well, I don't have a lot more to say, and I'll tell you why. I think if you're gonna eat a sprat, you eat it one bite at a time. And if you're gonna eat a whale, you eat it one bite at a time. I think the things that we've talked about need to be tackled. And I think we need to do it a bit at a time. But I think if we get those high-level things right, we'll start to see our cricket moving in the right direction. And then we can take another bite. But I think sometimes we like to put 10,000 solutions out there. I don't know, maybe it gives us the idea that we sound as though we know what we're talking about. But I think if you get a few of the key things right, you'll see the progress. And I think that's what we need to focus on, just to pick out the most important things we got to do right now. I think that is making sure the players have enough contact time from club cricket to regional level to international level to properly prepare them for that level. And if we can't get that right, it's a waste of time discussing anything else. That's the truth, because we're going to keep putting guys on the international stage before they're ready. All we are going to do is make them fail, recycle them, bring the next set, make them fail, then bring back the ones who failed before, still unprepared, and make them fail again. So I think we need to just work on making sure we prepare players properly for that top level before we put them out there. That's all I got to say for it.
I just want to know me. Hold a bit, but I think you know me too well, because I believe in solutions.
Yes.
And nearly all of the shows end with something specific that needs to be done or that can be done or something to think about. And you are ahead of me there. So you've probably earned yourself a bonus in that you could probably share what you want, or you can have the last word. But Basil, you wanted to say something just now. I'm going to allow you to do that. But before you,
it includes the solution.
No. Right. This is what. Right. So I was saying that whether it's that or not, before you finish, we want to hear your main solution, the thing that you think you can focus on most. Go ahead.
Yeah. Look, I I just want to say this quickly. This whole current selection system they put in place, in theory, it could work. My problem was this. We have a substandard, unprofessional cricket structure to parachute in something that requires professionalism, accountability, transparency, and all those things is a recipe for disaster. So I just wanted to note that in the context of what Dighton was talking about, getting certain little things right. This look like a big fancy thing, and blah blah blah, and all these people getting jobs and so on and so forth. But that is not moving our cricket forward, right? Because it's not hitting to the fundamental issue. I say this: our club cricket was the source of developing our cricketers to play international cricket, first class cricket. Our club cricket today is not fit for that purpose. We got guys playing first class cricket, but they're not first class cricketers. So I say this is something to think about. We create a structure below first class cricket, in between club cricket, i.e. something like the second 11 that they have in England, that will be based on what Philip likes to use the term high performance, right? It's a high performance based all the resources and the know-how for high performance. Obviously, we can't get the resources like the big tree and elsewhere, but the mindset within that structure is a high performance mindset, right? Where you would have players just coming off the first class or international, they could play with these youngsters to also be part of that mentorship, right? That is something I think we need to look at, because our current club system is not working for us. And in the context of that second 11, we can also look to bring in guys from overseas, guys who are just like our guys, looking to make a name for themselves, that come from a higher performance system to come and play, to help to boost up the system. It's like if our guys go to South Africa, for example, and playing in their club cricket, right? That is something. Players, you do have overseas players go to Australia, just like they go to England and so on. So that is something I think we need to look at, because the club situation is not working, and we all are lamenting. Guys are getting to first class level, much as international level, devoid of some of the most basic fundamental skills that are required in a player to play at first class.
Well said, Basil. What I will do though, I'm going to, I mean, we do know that the powers that be do hear us. I think the evidence of I think Dayton pointed that out quite clearly in another forum, that what we say is not lost. But what I'm going to simply do though, Basil, is modify your suggestion. Not modify in the sense that there's anything wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I would just consider adding another aspect to it, and you may or may not agree. You were talking about other players from other jurisdictions who are themselves trying to break through, and that's an interesting thought. What I would also do though, consider having each of the first class teams, and even maybe in the Super 50. And the usual argument is going to be lack of funds, but I'm one who believes that you can do anything. Okay, you just can't do everything. So in other words, yeah, lack of funds. So stop spending money on something that ain't necessarily producing, and spend on something else, because clearly what you're doing now ain't working. Right? So it's gonna be something that you could stop doing because it ain't helping. All right, and redirect funds. So what I'm saying is that if you can get even one, and I'm not going the CPL route where you take teams and the teams virtually lose any regional identity. It's a franchise, I understand that. That's not what I'm talking about for the other competitions. I'm talking about just one player, two at the most. But this is at the experience level now, okay? And this is the club cricket as it is. In other words, Basil, what you're talking about may take a year or so to put in place. What I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about can be done tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing things, you're taking baby steps. So if you can imagine having one experienced player in each of the regional franchises. How are you going to get that done? Well, no, you're not going to get the guys who are at the top of their game, okay? Because those guys are playing in all the T10, 20 leagues around the world. But surely there are guys who are not in demand. A name that jumps out at me, and I know that name is going to be lost, but this guy, an all-rounder, played for England, still plays T20, but he's certainly on the, closer to retirement than anything else. But there are a number of players who may be on the way out. So they're not playing T20 all over the world, and they may very well be available. And
Yeah, of course.
the thing about it, Basil, have you ever come across, and Dayton the same thing, have you ever come across a cricketer anywhere in the world who doesn't like to come to the Caribbean?
None. They love the
They love it
environment.
here.
So
They love it here.
I mean, here, Philip, I am not saying exclusively what I just throw that thing out.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say another thing too. The whole cost cutting. Maybe we need to, in age group, we need to just have under 16 and under 19, right? And let the territories work in building up their players to play under 16, and then between under 16 and under 19. In Dayton time and my time and so on, we only had one age group on the 19 regional cricket, right?
Correct.
That was tough as nails, right? Guys could come out of under 19 playing well and get into a first class team in our halcyon days. So that tells you the stiffness of the competition in that. Today, now, when we watch at our age group cricket, it's a joke. So it's obviously, again, not fit for the purpose. So that too got to be, in my view, got to restructured. You remember Dayton, I threw out the thing about the women's thing too. These women tournaments, we're spending all this money, but there's no return on investment because the context in which you're trying to get these women developed, that is not doing the job we need to do. We have to figure out a different methodology to get these women to play. Maybe you get the, just throwing out something, you get the best 25 or so in the region. They play amongst themselves and others, and simultaneously, the territorials have to have programs there to upskill the rest of the women. So then we can go back to full-fledged regional tournaments.
But regional tournaments in women's cricket, what do we have to support them? I mean,
nothing. So it's a waste of money.
Where are we coming from to a regional tournament? That's like having a car and you don't have any tires on it. There's nothing to support it.
Exactly.
Okay, you have a very small amount of women's cricket, very small in Barbados. You got a league in Trinidad, which is probably the only proper league to have. But if I from, let's say, Nevis, if I'm going from nothing to a regional tournament.
Correct.
So
and the regional
I support you 100%.
Is one level below international cricket.
International, right? So
we can't have people playing at that level, and to use your word, not prepared to be playing at that level. So when I remember I posted in the group, and Hartley was the first one to jump. I said, Hartley, we are wasting money, and now West Indies board come out crying about they broke or they ain't got enough money, because they've been pouring a lot of money, making it look like they're doing something, but they're not doing nothing. They're just spending money. We raised the money to $250,000 for the first class, and now you got to cut 2 teams out of the first class, right? And the 50 over. So how you spend money to hire strength and conditioning coaches in all the franchise. Do our first class cricketers look in the best condition, ready to on par with their colleagues around the world when we see them playing first class cricket? No, but you got this strength and conditioning coach, West Indies paying the salary.
Guys, so yeah. Okay, I thought you were finished your point. Sorry.
No, I'm saying that we have been pouring money in a lot of the wrong areas.
Oh, right. So if
Right?
we have a look at that, we may find the money then to do other things.
There's a focus with that small resources that we have. I think we'd be better off, but I don't think we have been laser focused.
I like the idea about the second division. I like Dayton's emphasis on preparation. That name, by the way, that he was trying to find just now, Ravi Bopar, he's about 40 years old. You're not bringing these guys. My idea is you're not bringing these guys primarily for the runs or wickets that they can provide. You're bringing
the
these
experience
guys to help to bring about or to be examples of the professionalism that has kept these guys playing not necessarily at test level. All were not highly successful test players because there was competition. A guy may lose his play. But if a guy is 40 years old and still playing first-class cricket in England and performing, he must be doing something right. And we've got guys who are not even performing at our first-class level. So we're talking about people like Ravi Bopar or Joe Denley, guys of that nature. Not Ollie Pope. Ollie Pope, he doesn't have time for us now when it comes to that. We talk about fellas on the way out. They may have lost their ability to score runs.
We have guys like that in South Africa.
But they've not lost their understanding of what professionalism is in cricket and the basic things that make a cricketer successful. They haven't lost that. So that's what you're really bringing them in primarily for. If they can contribute 40 or 50 runs on a given day, that's fine. If they can pick up 2 or 3 wickets, that's fine. But you're bringing them in as mentors, as teachers, as examples for the others. And that's my one thing that I would like to see introduced, because as I said, that doesn't require any new infrastructure or anything. That can be all that requires is the money to pay these guys or the package to make it attractive to them. All right. And as I said, a guy on the way out at 40 years old, it may not necessarily, he may be attracted by things other than money. We tend to feel that money is everything. And money is important. Don't misunderstand me. Money is important.
Yes.
A guy at that stage of his career may be equally happy with something you can negotiate in terms of the finance. But every morning you wake up and you're by the beach. There's a guy who was recruited for the Barbados franchise in the CPL some years ago. And they tend to make these announcements. And when the announcement was made that this guy was coming from England, they interviewed him. The guy talked about golf, he talked about the beaches, he talked about every aspect of Caribbean life. He didn't talk about the cricket yet. and he was still at that time at the peak of his game. So we have things that we can use to negotiate. We just have to be a bit more open-minded.
Yeah, but you're talking about something that was also part and parcel of West Indies cricket in the halcyon days. Many guys retired from international cricket and continued to play in first-class cricket and were good contributors. Just like the game I tell you about when my dad played against Barbados. After 2 weeks I retired, he was still captain in Barbados, right? Seymour Norris played several years for Barbados after retirement. My dad played after he retired for Guyana.
No, we want guys to captain.
We want
guys to captain when they should be learning how to bat and ball.
Yeah, and that was a normal thing that was part and parcel of the fabric of our cricket that has been lost.
Yes. Guys, it's been a lengthy marathon spell, but I think a lot of value is in there for those who want to search for it. And thanks to you, Dayton. Thanks to Basil. Always great talking to you guys on camera and off camera. It's been an experience, one that we should repeat sooner rather than later. Thanks again, guys.